So, George, come on up, man, and just share your story. This is George. Would you guys put your hands together for him?
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Good morning, City Church. Good morning, man. It is so good to be here this morning, and I love how this all just worked out because it was really. I talked to Neil like a week ago, basically, and it just all came together and all worked out. So I'm a firm believer that God meant for this to happen today. I was meant to be here, and I believe that everyone who is in here this morning was also meant to be in here this morning too. And I'm just so excited to be able to share what God has done in my life and just share my story, my testimony, and the things that I've gone through. And I want to point out, too, that I recognize and realize that all of us in here this morning come from different places. We come from different backgrounds. We face different challenges. And life isn't always fair, right? Life is not always fair. So my hope for this morning, for me being here, is that you can be encouraged and inspired. I definitely those two things, but most importantly, I just want you to be challenged. I want you to be challenged this morning to take a look at your own life, take a look at your own struggles and your own hardships, and maybe try and lean on the Lord in having a new perspective on those challenges. Because I'm a believer that perspective really, really matters. And again, I'm just so excited to be here. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I live there with my family, and I have the chance to travel around and just share what God's done in my life, what He's brought me out of, and where He's brought me today. So I want to start off and just tell you something about myself. And that something is very simply that I am not a good swimmer. I'm not a very good swimmer, but it's hard because I love to swim. I love swimming. And, if I get in the pool or I get in the lake or the ocean or anything like that, there's two steps that an armless person does to swim. It's well known by me. Two steps. I kick very fast and I pray very hard, especially when I'm out in that deep end. It's two steps, and most of the time it works out. So, I can't do many good tricks or anything. The only trick I'm pretty good at is a pencil dive. But other than that, I love it. And in Richmond, I live about 2 hours or so from Virginia Beach. So from the coast and the beach, and I love going to the beach each summer. It's amazing. I have fun there. And a couple of years ago, I was there swimming in the ocean, swimming in the water, and just really enjoying my day. And then after I was done, I swam back up to the shore, to the beach area, and I started to walk up on the beach. And when you're in my position, you kind of develop a kind of sense of your surroundings in the way that I know when people are looking at me. You know what I mean? Like, I know when people are staring. I know when people point. I just know. It's just something I've dealt with my entire life. And I deal with that even still today. I deal with people looking at me, staring, glancing, doing the double take thing or pointing, and then even coming up to me and asking me, where are your arms? What happened to you? People will ask me that all the time before they even ask me anything else about me, my name or anything. It's just, what happened to you? Where are your arms? So I was walking back up on this beach, and I knew that people were looking at me, and I started to walk past this one particular family, and it was a mom and a dad, and they had a little daughter who was maybe 4 or 5, and she kind of looked like that kid from Monsters, Inc. What was her name? You guys scared me. She kind of looked like that kid from Monsters, Inc. Boo. Really adorable. But she looked at me, and she just looked so confused. Just so confused. And I didn't know if she was thinking, this is some kind of dolphin creature or sea monster or what, but she looked really confused. And if there's one thing that we know about kids is that children have no filter. Yeah, it's just common knowledge. Children have no filter. So she looks at me and she just says, what's wrong with you? And her parents, they got really embarrassed. And they kind of pulled her back a little bit, and then kind of they looked back at me, like waiting for an answer. And I looked down at her and I just said, when I was your age, I didn't eat my vegetables. Instagram makes me look nicer than I actually am. That's the beauty of social media. You can look a certain way. But I said that, and she looked, she was looking really confused, and then she looked really scared. And I'll be honest, at this point, I kind of half expected her dad to just punch me in the face. Which, what would I do? Block it? So I was ready for it. But she looked at her dad, and her dad just stood there, and he just did this. That's it. Man. Well, hey, I want to go ahead and rewind and kind of take you back to the beginning of my life and really just share with you all that God has done, because God has saved me in so many different ways. And, I believe that He is always working. He is always moving. He is always orchestrating our path, orchestrating our plan, because He does have a plan and a purpose for our lives. And even when life isn't good, God is still good. And His plans are still good. So I was born actually without arms, just born like this, no reason that I know of, just this is how I was made. And I was born in a small little poor village in Romania on January 19th, 1994. And at this point in time, this village didn't have a name or anything, it just had a number. So it was a just gross little grimy village. And because I was born like this, I was born disabled and imperfect and weird and freaky. Because I was born like this, I was given up to an orphanage straight from birth. So, I came into the world and immediately unwanted, immediately abandoned in this orphanage in the city of Timișoara. And I was there for the first couple years of my life. And in this place, I was neglected and malnourished. And I was never held or cared for or fed properly, because my life didn't matter as much, because I don't have arms. Because I'm imperfect, because I'm not normal. And on top of that, they were all very superstitious. All these nurses and workers in this orphanage were superstitious. So they actually thought that I was cursed by God, that I had evil spirits living inside of me because of the way that I was born. So if they were to hold me or anything like that, then I would curse them. This little baby would curse them. There was even a doctor who came into the orphanage, and he would look at all the orphans in this place and would give a medical little evaluation. And he came over to where I was. He came over to my crib and looked down and saw me and saw my condition. And all he said to the nurse was that there's no hope for this one. There's no hope for him. He's just going to die soon anyways. He should never have been born. What a waste. Then he took a piece of paper and he wrote a month and a year. Then he left one blank. And then he taped that piece of paper to the crib and titled that paper Death Date. And he told the nurses, you just fill in the day of when he dies. And then he left. So, yeah, I mean, the beginning of my life is not exactly a happy tale at all. But man, I'm so thankful we serve a God who writes our story. That the beginning doesn't determine the end. That God writes the outcome. God determines the outcome. While all that was happening, while I was dying in this Romanian orphanage, God was moving and working out the pieces for my good. On the whole other side of the world, he was beginning to stir in the hearts of a couple here in the States who had a lovely family, who had 3 children, and they were in a comfy house, and they had good jobs, and it was just a good, comfy life. But then God stirred them and moved their hearts to more, to something greater. And essentially convicted them of this idea of, as believers, as Christians, we're not called to be comfortable. We're not called to just be comfy and do the church thing on Sunday and check that off the list and then go about our day. No, God can have so much more for that. God can have so much more for us. And that's kind of what began to stir their hearts. And they both had very different things in mind of what that would look like, how they could use their gifts, use their talents, use their resources for the kingdom of God. They both had very different ideas. And both ideas were good. Mike Dennehy had the idea that they would go to the homeless shelter, that they would feed the homeless, or they'd go to a pet or an animal shelter and care for animals, and which are good things. It's just that his wife, Sharon, had a very different idea. She said, hey, let's adopt a child that nobody else in the world would want to adopt. That was her idea. You know what he said? Sure, honey. Yes, honey. That's all he said. But she was serious. They had some friends of theirs who had just gone through this adoption process. So she was able to borrow newsletters, like physical newsletters from their friends. And she just told Mike, just look through this newsletter at work and just at least do that. I'll do that while I'm here homeschooling the kids and just at least do that and pray about it. Don't forget to pray about it. And that's what they did. You know, she was looking through this newsletter one day and came across this one picture that really caught her eye. And it was a black and white picture of a baby with no arms. And the picture had a description. And that description said, "Baby boy born with no arms desperately needs a loving family." And then it went on to say, "This boy will soon die. ... And when she read that, when she saw that picture, when she read that description, she knew right away what God was calling them to do. That God was calling them to fill in those dots, to rescue this baby boy in Romania. But, you know, she had to see if he'd be up for that. And he came back from work that same day and walked in and said, "Well, I looked through the newsletter and I found a child that maybe I think we could adopt." And she got excited because we're getting 2 kids? We're adopting 2? Awesome. But he pointed to the exact same picture that she found. So I don't know. I don't know if you've ever been in a position in your life when you just know without a doubt that God is telling you to do something. Like it's just crystal clear. You can even like make an excuse for it because it's so abundantly clear. Those moments are so special, and we need to be thankful for those moments. And that was that moment for them. They knew without a doubt what they were called to do. So that's what they did. They flew, they went through the extensive and tedious adoption process first. And then they flew to Romania. They went to this orphanage in Timișoara. They found me. They picked me up for the very first time. I was 2 years old and I weighed 9 pounds. I was pale. I was sick. I couldn't hold my head up. I had no teeth. I had no hair. And they tell me I really kind of looked just like a dead body. But they brought me home. They gave me a new name. They gave me a new family. They gave me a room. They gave me a new life, a second chance at life. And really what it boils down to is they gave me a whole new trajectory for my life, a new hope and a new future. At once I was abandoned and left for dead in this Romanian orphanage, but because of love, because of adoption, not that I had anything to offer them, I was just this armless little baby, but they adopted me. They brought me into their family. They gave me a new name and a new hope and a new future because they loved me. And that's just it. And I have to ask, does this sound familiar to anybody? I mean, isn't that kind of what God does for us? Isn't that a little bit what the gospel is? I mean, obviously, we don't have anything here on this earth that can even remotely replicate what the gospel is. That's an eternal thing. But if we had anything that could kind of be some kind of picture of the gospel, I think adoption is a beautiful picture of what the gospel is. Because at one time, we were orphans. At one time, we were abandoned by the world. At one time, we were left for dead. But then God saw us in our little orphanages, and he said, no. That's my child. That's my son. That's my daughter. We just sang that just a few moments ago. He's a good, good father. Not that we have anything to offer him. We don't have anything to offer him. That's already his. But he adopts us into his family because he loves us. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're in here this morning and you've given your life to Christ, but you haven't really thought of yourself as have been adopted, think about that. It's a very cool and it's a very humbling thing. You know, I came into this family, and it's neat because it really only took about a year or so for me to completely flourish. I mean, I look at pictures of myself when I was first adopted and then just a year later, and it's a completely different person. I mean, I have hair, I have teeth, I'm chubby, and I'm happy, I'm smiling, I have my head up, and I'm moving around, and it didn't take long at all. It's amazing what can happen when people are given love. When people are given some real love. I think some love and a couple Happy Meals go a long way. Did for me. But that's what my parents did for me. And not only me, I want to share real quick, my parents, they adopted me, and then they went on to adopt 9 more children from 5 other countries. And adoption has been their ministry. So we have a lot of countries represented, from Ethiopia to China to Thailand to India to Romania, and also here in the U.S., just some foster kids that just never left, I guess. They just stayed forever. And I put it very simply, I love some good baked goods, I'll be honest with you. So I like to put it in these terms that, my parents, they have their 3 homemade cookies, and then they have their 10 store-bought cookies. And that basically sums up our entire family. And if it's anything like my mom's actual baking, you want to go with the store-bought every single time. She's not here, so I can say that. And great job, Neil. You went store-bought, so nobody's getting food poisoning today. But I loved growing up in this very unique, diverse, very different, very crazy family. It was a very special thing. And my parents, again, they weren't experts in adoption. I want to tell you this right now. They're not experts at all. They make a lot of mistakes. They're not experts in caring for special needs, or they're not even experts in the area that they were called. But they just knew that God was calling them to it, that God's going to make it work. They knew that if God created me, then surely God would sustain me. And that's kind of how they approached raising me, as I had to overcome so many different challenges in my life and how to learn how to do things my own way and learn how to use my feet and use my legs or use my chin or my mouth or whatever I had at my disposal to overcome the challenges of just living day-to-day life. Because that's what I had to do. And over time, I began to achieve more and more. I began to learn that, hey, if I try this thing this way, it works. Hey, if I figure out if I put my shirt on the floor and then button it up with both of my toes and then throw it over my head, that works a lot better than trying to just button it with one foot sitting on a chair. Like, there's different ways. And I'm so thankful that my parents, they didn't let me give up. They didn't let me complain very much. They didn't let me feel sorry for myself, or they didn't do everything for me like I wanted them to do. No, they really pushed me to persevere. They really pushed me to learn how to navigate this life of not having arms. So I'm thankful for that. And now today, I do everything. I do everything that everybody else does. I just do things different. I drive just a regular car. It's not modified. It is automatic, though. Don't put me behind a stick shift. I travel. I live independently. I take care of my family, my wife, and our 2 boys. And I just do it all. And for a while, as a kid, I grew more confident and secure in who I was because I was being able to learn to do everything. But then I came to a point in my childhood when everything changed. When I hit a wall. And it was really during middle school, as a teenager and experiencing things that I had never experienced before as a kid. When I was a child, when other kids would come up to me and they'd say, hey, well, where are your arms? I would say, I don't have any. And then they would just say, okay, cool, and then just go play. Or sometimes I would tell them, I don't have arms. And then they would forget that they even asked me that question because you're 5, you're 6, you're 7. But when I was 12, when I was 13, when I was 14, and I was at this new school, and kids are coming up to me and they're saying, where are your arms? And I was telling them, I don't have any. Then they would say, that's weird. Why? Don't you hate not having arms? Don't you think that's weird? Don't you wish you had arms? And then they would get even more mean. Then they would call me names, and they would pick on me. They would do things in the hallway to me. I lived in a school with some really bad apples. Some kids who saw that I was different and used my difference, used my disability as a way to put me down. And I went through years of this in this school. I mean, I would even be at lunch in the cafeteria, and I'd be sitting and I'd sit at the table and eating my lunch, and kids would walk by and laugh or point and mock, and they would put their feet on the table, and it became such a hard thing for me. I got so self-conscious and insecure of who I was that I just stopped eating lunch at school altogether. And really, I got to a point where I hated who I was. The enemy had such a strong hold on my heart, and I really felt like I just didn't matter. I really believe that one thing that the enemy will try to do, especially to us believers, is he'll try to isolate us for one, and then he'll try to bring us to a point in our lives, or bring us to a point in our own hearts where we feel like we can't be used by God. Where we feel like we don't matter to God. Where we feel like we're not good enough for God to really use us. Not when there's this guy over here who's way better than me. I think that's what the enemy likes to do, because if we feel like we can't be used by God, then we're going to distance ourselves slowly and slowly and slowly away from God's purpose for our lives. And anywhere else except God's purpose for our lives is where the enemy wants us to be. And that's where I was as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, just really hating myself and being angry at the world, being angry at God. Becoming so depressed, so angry, even suicidal, just thinking that my life did not matter. Thinking and really believing that I'm a curse. And really, I didn't understand how such a loving God could make me without arms. Because I grew up in church. I spent my whole childhood in church. I grew up in Sunday school. I grew up taking music lessons from a very young age. So I grew up hearing all the verses and the songs and all that stuff about Jeremiah 29:11 and Philippians 4:13 and John 3:16. Like I grew up hearing all this stuff, but here I am as a teenager now thinking, how can such a loving God just make somebody with no arms? Who does that? What kind of God does that? And really, I began to be in this mindset of, why me? Why me? Why me? And I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but I was asking why me, not from a genuine curiosity or wanting to find an answer from God, but really from a victim standpoint. Like, why me? God, how could you? How could you do this? And maybe you've asked that question before. Maybe you've been in a position or in a place in your life, in a season in your life when you just can't help but say, God, how could such a loving God do this? I think it's a place we all find ourselves sometimes. And I really believe that what we ask matters. Our questions when we're facing struggles, when we're going through dark seasons, when we're going through hard times, our questions really, really matter. And I remember also just praying every single day and basically telling God and saying, God, if you're real and if you're loving and if you are all these good things that I hear about, then make me wake up tomorrow with arms. Make me wake up tomorrow with arms because I want to be healed. I want to be healed. I want to be just like everybody else. I want to be normal. So God, if you're good, if you're loving, make me wake up tomorrow with arms. And I remember one Sunday, I was at church, not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. And I was sitting at church and during the sermon, and the pastor started reading out of John chapter 9, the first couple verses, 1 through 4 maybe. And I began to listen because I felt very familiar with the story that was going on here. And I'm just going to paraphrase real quick, but if I get anything wrong, Neil, you know what to do. Just knock me out of here. But I'm just going to paraphrase basically what's going on here. So basically, Jesus and his disciples in this passage are walking on this path. They're going somewhere, and the disciples see a blind man on the side of the road. And then the disciples, they see this disabled guy. I'm sure they do some kind of double take, and then they blurt out their mouths with no filter. They say, "Whoa, Rabbi, do you see this guy? Look, what happened to him? What happened to him? Where is his sight?" And they ask, "Did he sin? Did his parents sin maybe? Because no way this could have happened on purpose. Like no way, like something must have gone wrong here. This must be some kind of curse." And then that's what I thought about myself. And Jesus very simply says, no. It was nobody's sin. It was nobody's wrongdoing. This is not a curse on this man, but he was born like this so that the works of God could be seen through him. So that the works of God could be seen through him. And I remember kind of being a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and sometimes all we need from the Lord is just a flicker. Like almost just like a little seed. Like sometimes God can show up to us, like Paul on the road, like some big extravagant thing. But sometimes all we need is just that little thing saying, well, maybe there's another way. And I had kind of this moment where it's like the works of God could be seen through him. And then the pastor kept reading. And the next part in that passage talks about how Jesus goes on to spit on the ground, take the mud from his spit, and he puts it on this blind guy's face, and he heals this blind man. So that first part was pretty cool. I thought, okay, well, the works of God could be seen through him. But then Jesus then goes on and heals this blind man, gives him sight, heals his disability. So now I'm really mad. Like, honestly, now I'm really mad because I'm thinking, what about me? Like, what about me? You haven't healed my disability yet. You haven't given me arms. And very simply, I just had another little thought that I just know was from the Lord. And it was very simply, George, your disability is not having arms. That's not your disability. And I thought about my life, and I thought about just what I do and how I have overcome how I do everything with my feet. And I began to realize, and I want to tell you this now, that I am disabled. I am a disabled person, but it's not because I don't have arms. No, my disability is everything that goes on the inside. My disability is my heart. My disability is my doubts, my insecurities, my anxiety. My disability, really, at the end of the day, is sin. And if we're honest with ourselves, if we look at ourselves in the mirror, if we look into our own hearts, then maybe we can all say, hey, I'm disabled too. Because really, we all are disabled. We all have disabilities. And I'll kind of start closing with this. I realized that I'm 31 now, and I take a look back at those teenage years, and I think, man, if God gave me arms one of those days, like one of those mornings, if I just woke up and had arms regenerated like a frog, like how cool that would have been, right? And that was my prayer. Like, God, just give me arms. I want to be just like everybody else. That'll make me so happy. Then I'll follow you. Then I'll be good. Then I'll really trust you. And maybe we've done that too in other ways. Like, God, if you just do this for me, if you just get me out of this jam, if you just get me this new job, if you just help me find the one, help me find the right person. God, if you just do this one thing for me, then I'll be good. Then I'll be set. And I realized that was my thing. I said, God, if you just give me arms, then I'll be set. Then I'll be happy, and then I'll trust you. Then I'll follow you. But I realized, as great as it would have been if God gave me arms, as much of a miracle as it would have been, I know myself. I know that eventually, it may have been a few years, I don't know, but eventually I would have gotten used to it. It would become normal. That miracle would have faded off. And there would have been something else to come up at some point in my life where I would say, God, the arms thing, that's cool and all, but I really need this now. God, I really just want this now. We are never going to be truly fulfilled. We're never going to be truly content without Jesus, without Christ in our hearts. That's what Philippians is all about. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's not about I can play the guitar because Christ gives me strength. It's true, he does give me strength to do that, but that's not what the verse is talking about. It's I can do all things. I can do everything in life. I can get through everything in life because it's Christ who strengthens me. I have learned to be content in any circumstance, in every circumstance, because I know that he is on the throne, not me. And again, I know that a lot of us go through so many things in life. We go through challenges. And it's hard because we're not in control. And there are so many things that happen in our lives that are outside of our control, and sometimes we feel like life isn't fair. And you know what? It's true. Life isn't fair. Why? Because we live in this sinful and broken world, and we are affected by sin and brokenness. The thing that we control, the thing that we have control over is who are we going to put our faith in? Who are we going to trust? What questions are we going to ask? And that's what I want to leave you with this morning as I play a song for you, and hopefully you leave here just with that thought in mind, just maybe that little flicker. God, I know you have a plan and a purpose for me. And everything else that I face, everything else that I deal with, all my struggles are small compared to who you are. So I just want to encourage you to lean on that, to trust that he is good, to trust that he is in control, that his plans are good for you and for me. So I want to share with you a song that I wrote. It's called Not Abandoned, and this is just a reminder for all of us that though we sometimes may feel alone, though we sometimes may feel abandoned by the world, whether it be my biological parents or the orphanage or whatever it might be, by everyone at school or whoever in your life that you felt abandoned by, just know that what God says is that you're not alone. And this is called Not Abandoned. He wants to make you his own. You're gonna find out. On this broken road there is a pathway that's gonna lead you home. You're not abandoned. You're not abandoned. You're not abandoned. Thank you.